All right, we're just going to wait for a few minutes for everybody to kind of log on here. Let me get this back a little. All right, and hopefully everybody can hear me all right. So let me see. Should be working. All right. All righty, we're going to do a metaphysical Q&A today. Yay! Yay! So hello, everybody. Yay! You can hear and see me. We're doing good. We're doing all right. Okay. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. So if you guys haven't done a metaphysical Q&A, this one is about any medical issues or like in my world, and this is just me, people don't get sick willy-nilly. There's always 9 times out of 10 a reason. And that reason 9 times out of 10 usually is due to negative emotions that you're holding on to for an extended period of time. So that's why I like to do this metaphysical Q&A, because it really helps people to kind of understand how your thoughts and your emotions really do matter. So, and Fantasia, I got to figure that one out. Let me see what basically it is. APHANT. So that's actually very common for that anesthesia or aphantasia. I can't pronounce that word. That actually has a lot to do with people that are neurodivergent. So oftentimes you're going to see that and synesthesia kind of go hand in hand. And usually people that have synesthesia are people like me. So ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, things like those. So it wouldn't surprise me if you were diagnosed with something along the lines of that. So let's see, sciatic nerve pain. So anything with the sciatica is indecision. You have a really hard, difficult time just making a decision and going for it. So you always have to kind of worry about what everybody else might think, or you really worry about making the wrong decision. And so sciatica is always indecision. It's issues with just making a decision and going for it. Kidney stones. Kidney stones, Amy, oftentimes have everything to do, I can show that one. So kidney stones have everything to do with a fact that how do I explain this one? Stones and cysts are always about anger. And you're holding on to anger to yourself or about yourself in regards to how you compare yourself to your family. So how you can compare yourself to your mom, your brother, your sister, and you deem that they're more successful than you are, or that you feel that they get more privileges in your family than you do. And you get kind of pissed off about it or angry about it. So usually that's where the kidney stones come from. It's holding on to anger with your family, with your extended family. So this one says, how about a combo of low potassium, low calcium, and high blood pressure? That means that you have the tendency to hold your emotions in and you don't speak your truth. So when somebody pisses you off, you don't say anything about it, but yet you actually brew about it and you don't get that venom out. You hold it in instead of not allowing somebody to disrespect you in front of your face. So that has a lot to do with it. The other half is lack of fun or lack of joy. It's like all play, no work, or all work, no play. Geesh. So let's see here. What causes Graves' disease? So Graves is it's an autoimmune issue, which is always viral for me. And Graves is because you don't speak your truth within your relationships or with your family. So you don't say the word no. You don't put up boundaries and you don't say no. And you have a hard time telling people no. So often that's where Graves' disease comes in, is that you don't tell people no. Same with Hashimoto's. It's kind of the same thing. Hashimoto's is the same. It's all throat chakra related. So that has everything to do with, again, not speaking your truth, not saying no, not I don't want to come today just because I really don't feel like it. So instead of you just being honest and speaking your truth about it, that's where, like I said, it's all going to fester here. That's why kids get strep throat. It's because they really want to tell you how they feel or why they're doing dumb shit, but they can't tell you because they know that they're going to get in trouble, or they know it's going to start a fight or an argument. So that is all about the throat. It is not standing up for yourself, putting up boundaries, and telling people no. That's always the thyroid and throat, Hashimoto's, all that, Graves, same thing. Let's see, having respiratory issues. Respiratory issues are always about grief or severe disappointment within yourself. But 9 times out of 10, it's grief. It's sadness. It's grief. Lower back pain, Michelle, is because you're going to a job because you have to, because of the money and the insurance, not because it has anything to do with your life purpose. So lower back pain is lack of financial support because you're doing a job that has nothing to do with your life purpose. Right knee issues. Right knee issues have everything to do with not taking a step forward and getting out of that relationship or getting out of that shitty job or moving forward. If it's the left side, that's more or less, your lack of creativity or you're not moving forward with your spiritual connection. So right knee is always more kind of masculine energy. So that has to do with jobs, has to do with relationships, and finances. Let's see, some of these are great. Let's see. Let's get this one here. So gout is stubbornness. And the reason why you have stubbornness is because you like things to be in control and you like them to be a certain way. And that's not life. That's not how life works. So you got to learn how to relinquish control and just kind of go with the flow. That same with like arthritis from the knees down or anything with feet or knee issues. It's stubbornness because you don't like change and you want to know the outcome of that change. And it's really based in fear. So you're scared of change. You're scared of what may happen because you like your routine, because it's familiar and you deem it easy. This is a great question. So how do I feel about fasting for health, like 3 days? I love that idea, especially for people that have autoimmune disease. People that have autoimmune, if you do a 3 or a 5 day fast, what ends up happening is your body goes into ketosis and then it's able to attack the cells that are kind of going rogue. So I think for people that have autoimmune issues, I think fasting is an excellent idea, really is. Let's see. This one says, 10-year-old has a lot of sleep lately. He's intimidated by his father. Ex-husband won't speak his thoughts and feelings. Allow him to speak to you about those thoughts and feelings. But as a result, Lisa, you cannot go to your ex-husband and be like, you did this and you did this, because it's going to make it worse for him. So you need to be the person that he can go to, that he can trust, that isn't going to start any fights or drama. And then a lot of times 10-year-olds have the tendency to sleep a lot because they're going to be growing anyway. But if he wets the bed, that is par for the course, especially with an intimidating or overbearing father. So that's why little boys wet the bed often later, especially past the age of 5 or 6. And that's usually because their dad is overbearing or intimidating. And usually I see that in military households. Let's see here. This is a good one too. Fatty tissue, chronic lipomas. So that means to tell me that you don't feel comfortable in your own skin and you really don't like yourself. You don't like the way you look. You don't like the outer shell of you. And you're constantly fighting that. So lipomas are the reason why they're on your skin is because you don't feel comfortable in your own skin. Let's see here. These are good ones. Let's see, varicose veins. Believe it or not, varicose veins is my #1 indicator for a copper deficiency. So drink out of a copper cup. That's really going to help you out. But that has a little bit to do with you feel that you have to do it all yourself. and you constantly have to move and you have to do everything yourself because you can't count or rely on other people. Weight gain. Weight gain is very, very common for empaths. And the reason why is because you vibe high, other people don't. They vibe low. You talk to them, you get equaled out, they walk away, another person comes by. And so at the end of the day, you're absolutely exhausted and drained of energy. So your body holds on to extra fat, thinking that it's going to need it for tomorrow because its energy is going to get drained or dumped. So that's very, very common in empaths. And the minute you start putting up boundaries, the minute you start saying no, the minute you start limiting the time with those energy vampires, the weight will actually start falling off. Right eye is always draining or runny. Deborah, that has a lot to do with you're not seeing where you stand within your job, or you're not seeing where your place is, or you're not seeing where your place is within financial or within the family or within a job. Usually it's a job. Let's see. Let's see why I don't remember my dreams. A lot of people don't. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. The only thing I can tell you is it's kind of like when your brains are ready, you're going to remember. Oftentimes, especially when you first start to go through a spiritual awakening, your sleep patterns are all messed up anyway. So oftentimes you're not going to remember, but after a while, you will remember your dreams. But ask God to help you remember the dreams before you go to bed, and you'll remember them when you're ready to. So that's one of those that you really can't force. I wish we could, but really can't. This is a good one. Had my appendix out yesterday. What's that about? So appendix is being force-fed bullshit that you don't want to, that you know at a soul level is bullshit, but you can't figure out quite how, or you're not in a place to be able to go, that's bullshit. And let me tell you why. So you're just in a really weird spot where you're being almost force-fed stuff that you're like, this isn't making any sense. This doesn't even resonate with me. But yet you can't say anything about it because you're going to rock the boat too much to where you might like lose a job. So oftentimes that's what appendicitis is. Digestive issues. That's honestly par for the course, especially for people going through a spiritual awakening. And the reason why is because you're vibrating at a higher frequency now. So you are not going to be able to eat that low vibrational man-made bullshit food anymore. You have to change your diet. You just have to. Why do we gravitate to people who are not good for us, Tiffany? Well, we don't do that. You do. And the reason why is because you haven't fixed your abandonment issue by your biological father. And until that gets fixed, you are going to accept low bullshit people who aren't good for you because you don't have enough self-confidence or self-worth to really see that and understand what you're worth. So, and I blame your dad, because a dad's job is to instill that bar for a girl. So, very emotional yesterday and today. Was there a solar flare? No, there wasn't, Chris, but Jupiter went into Taurus. And so my guess is if you're emotional, that has everything to do with your astrology chart. I will tell you that, and I'm just going to say this because I don't quite know what's going to happen tomorrow, but something's brewing. And I think it's going to be financial. The last time I felt this way, 3 banks shut down, and I'm like, something's brewing tomorrow too. I think it's financial. I'm not sure. So I guess we'll wait and see. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just know that there's something that's coming up that, like, I don't know, that we're like, oh, like maybe it's digital currency. I don't know, but there's just something brewing for tomorrow. And I'm like, So husband dreams of exorcising demons frequently. What are your thoughts on this? That means that he is not, he's either getting ready to approach his shadow work, or he's not dealing with his traumas and triggers. Let's see. These are good questions, guys. Holy shit. These are great. Let's see. Dad that has dementia and is getting kicked out of nursing homes because he's being mean to everybody. Melissa, I'll answer that one. That's a good one. So here's the deal. When you get dementia or Alzheimer's or something along these lines, you grow up in a household where you had to go out and feed the chickens in the morning and collect the eggs before school even started because that was your food source. So you get automatically right out the gate as a child thinking that life is very hard, life is difficult, and you got to work really, really hard. And what that does is you build this rigidity. And then what happens is you get dementia and you begin to release that rigidity. And so what happens is you say you get diagnosed at 80 years old. Well, you begin to revert. So then you go to 70 to 60 to 50 to 40, and then they get to 30 years old, going backwards, and all of a sudden their venom comes out. And you are like, oh my God, that is not my grandpa or my grandma. They do not talk like this. I'm like, they don't, but they're getting their venom out. They're getting all that harshness and the rigidity and the venom out before they cross over, because it's easier to deal with here than it is there. So for the person who has dementia, it's a weird blessing in disguise, because they are able to release all of that rigidity and hardness. For the people that have to watch it, it sucks. It sucks for the family that has to watch this happen. But for me, that tells me that he's releasing, and that's a good thing. So at a soul level, that's a good thing. So let's see. These are good ones. Small fiber neuropathy, to clarify. Danny, there's one of two things. One, it could be a pinched nerve, especially in the mid-back region. We may need to get a chiropractor in there. But the other reason is because you really don't like change and you're pretty stubborn. And that stubbornness and that rigidity is the reason why we're having those issues. So, oh, this is great. Chronic alcoholism. If it's a male who's an alcoholic, it's because 9 times out of 10, their father was extremely mean, difficult, abusive, verbally, physically, mentally abusive, and they don't know how to get rid of the anger. So they drink alcohol to soothe the anger. And the anger is what screws the liver up. Cirrhosis isn't because of the alcohol, it's because they're an angry drunk. And so if you're an angry drunk, the odds of you getting cirrhosis at 40 is very high. If you're a happy drunk, you're probably not going to have to worry about cirrhosis. But for males, it's always their biological father was very overbearing, mean, like hard. It's a female who is an alcoholic. It's usually due to an abandonment issue. Dad died early, then the husband left, and then the son won't talk to her. So it's like abandonment. And they're doing that to soothe the pain of the abandonment. So that's usually where the alcoholic kind of comes in. Let's see. Narcissistic men versus narcissistic women, they're the same. And I'll tell you what, narcissistic men are easier to see and notice than women. Women are a hell of a lot trickier. So way trickier. Let's see here. Dreaming of my ex-husband, dreaming of my ex-narcissist every night. How can you stop? Marie, if you're still dreaming about that person, then that means to tell me that your current relationship, you are still reacting the same way as you did back then. But let's be real. If you survive a narcissistic relationship, you are going to have some PTSD from that. That's no joke. You will. So you very well, the minute, your husband could say, stand up for himself, you're going to automatically go default to that. So keep working on that trauma one day at a time. Keep working at it. That shit's not easy. It's not, but it very much, it's very similar to PTSD. Let's see. When you close your eyes at night, you see tiny little stars. That's telling me that your clairvoyance is really beginning to kick into gear. So that's pretty good. Hang on one second. This is a great question, Anne. I'm glad that you asked this question. Silly question, but curious. Is there a metaphysical meaning behind getting repeated paper cuts on the hand? Yes, and it depends on which finger. So is it the palm of your hand? Is it your pointer finger? If it's your pointer finger, you have a problem with authority, or you deem yourself as the authoritative one. But usually you don't like the authoritative place where you're at. And if it's at work, my guess is that you have a problem with your boss, especially if it's this finger. So if it's going to be this one, it'll be your relationship. If it's this one, it's creativity. And usually this one, I always forget this one. I think I don't know if it's this one represents yourself. I forget this one. So I just know that this one is authority. And 9 times out of 10, if you get a paper cut, it's going to be on this one because you're pissed off at authority. So yes, it does matter. Good question. Let's see here. This is a pretty good question too, even though it's not really metaphysical, metaphysical anatomy related. Most of my life been drawn to death, curious about afterlife, had a dream about helping people cross over. Is it possible to help people cross over? Yes. Yeah, you very well could be doing it in a dream state, or you would have been like a hospice care nurse in a previous life. So that would not surprise me at all with you. Let's see here. Tinnitus. So tinnitus is inflexibility. You don't like to be inconvenienced. You don't like it when life interrupts your plans. So pretty much that's the gist of it. So you don't like to be interrupted, and you have your plan for the day, and if it gets interrupted, you get all shades of pissed. So non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, that is absolutely autoimmune related. So now depending on where it's at or where they found it at is going to be dependent on the negative emotion that you're holding on to. My son thinks he sold his soul to the devil. Is that possible? Yes. Yeah, it is. That's why most people that are famous on TV already have. Yes, middle finger is action. Thank you, Margaret. That's what it is. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. I see people's faces sometimes when you close your eyes. Lisa, that tells me that your clairvoyance is really kicking on. So that tells me at this point you are clairvoyant. Let's see. This is a great one too. I always injured my left side. Does that have a metaphysical meaning? Yep. That has everything to do, Amber, with your mother. So that means to tell me that you have issues with your mom, or that there's some trauma there, or that your mother is a narcissistic bee. So, but left side always represents the mother. So, and if it's not, you don't have issues with your mother, then that means to tell me that you don't feel comfortable yourself being a mother, or you're frustrated at yourself for maybe what you taught your children. So, but yeah, that has everything to do with motherhood. This is a good one right here. I like this question. Does grounding help with your connection to intuition? And if so, why? Yes. Grounding has everything to do with your root chakra. Root chakra is based with survival, blocked by fear. Your anxiety lives in your root chakra, and you will not be able to be intuitive at all or use those abilities to help other people if you don't deal with your fear. So I don't think people understand that if you have to have just like a tree has a good base to it and it has a good up, but if your base is wonky and your branches are up high, all you're going to do is like la la la, and you're not going to get shit, and you're just going to get frizzled. So that the best thing I can tell you is ground, absolutely ground. So even though I'm a psychic medium, I have a bachelor's degree in horticulture. That's why. That's exactly why. So yes, absolutely it does. Because if you're still in fear about your spirituality, that just means to tell me that you don't understand, because people fear what they don't understand. That's it. People fear what they don't understand. So that's where Enlightenment Academy comes in. This is why I like to teach Enlightenment Academy, because I want to be able to teach my students, like, when this happens, here's the reason why. When this happens, this is the reason why. And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah. But if you've never experienced that, and when it does happen to you, how are you supposed to know? So that's why I like to teach Enlightenment Academy for this aspect right here. And I will tell you, everybody wants to open up their third eye and their crown, and they're always focused on the third eye chakra. I'm like, don't forget about your root chakra, because if your root is not stabilized and balanced, you're not going to be able to do shit. You're not, because half the time your third eye chakra is open and on and ready to go, but you are not balanced out enough. And that's why you're having that disconnect. 9 times out of 10, it's because you're not grounded. So you have to be both. Great question. Let's see. Oh, this one's a good one too. So right elbow, arm, and wrist. That means to tell me that you're really holding on to something that you have got to let go of, but you are scared to death to let go of a person or a job or a situation. One of those three. Testicular cancer, 18 for a man. Courtney, that usually that's autoimmune. So that's virally based. But oftentimes, if it is testicular cancer, it is because they are in constant fear of what might happen to them. So they are always looking over their shoulder at the what if. What if this? What if that? I got to protect myself, got to protect the family, got to protect, got to protect, got to protect. So it's a fear-based response. And if they, most likely at 18, they were put in a situation where they were extremely vulnerable, and that vulnerability got exposed, and probably a parent, should have been a parent, wasn't there for whatever reason, and they are resentful to that parent and the situation that happened. So most likely that's usually where it's at. So my child has trouble sleeping. Full moon can almost guarantee he'll flip days and nights. That's very, very common. Yeah, absolutely. And the more intuitive you become or enlightened you become, you will notice that you will, especially women, will become very lunar. So my cycle is every 28 days, full moon to full moon. Every single time, like we're on the money. So the more intuitive you become, the more you're going to be cyclic, the more you're going to notice lunar activity and how much it really, like, I don't sleep in a full moon. I don't think anybody that's enlightened sleeps in a full moon. We just don't. So new moon is when we have a hope of getting maybe 8 hours. So keep injuring the same foot. It's stubbornness. So, and if it's your right foot, it's stubbornness within relationships or stubbornness within your job. And if it's left, it's your stubbornness with your lack of creativity or lack of intuition. How do you get past the abandonment? Therapy. Therapy. That's the best way you can do it. 21-year-old son has dealt with insomnia since he was a baby. What could it be? The pineal gland regulates serotonin and melatonin. So without, at this point, for him being that young, I would actually request a brain scan or an MRI or something to see that pituitary gland or pineal gland, the pineal, just to make sure the pineal gland is okay. So that there isn't a cyst on there or maybe any sort of growth or even like a funky, blood, vein in there or something, but that one should be checked out. So, because that has everything to do with the pineal gland. And if it's the pineal gland and he's a young kid, I'm curious to know what he did in a previous life, especially when it comes to religion. Let's see here. Super exhausted and irritable all the freaking time. I hate it. Lacey, it sounds autoimmune. So, and I'll tell you what, if you're childbearing age, which it looks like you are, we have to start looking at autoimmune issues, and you're going to need an immunologist, and you're probably going to have to see 12 to 15 different doctors before somebody will freaking listen to you. You have to be your own advocate in the healthcare system anymore. So if that means you just keep going to doctors until somebody's willing to listen to you, you have to. You just have to. So, and that sucks, but that's our healthcare system right now. So you have to be your best advocate. So let's see here. Early 40s period just stopped abruptly 6 months ago. No menopause, feel normal. So if that is the case, I'm curious to know, Maria, if you have, if your, I know this sounds so strange, if your dad died, or if he was diagnosed with something that would have affected his health, or if you just pretty much put up a boundary between you and your dad. So I know that sounds weird, but I'm just curious to know if your dad has anything to do with emotions when it comes to you. About, it would have been probably 6 to 8 months ago. So let me know that one. Let's see. Vivid dreams, people who passed away, always in color. So Donna, that's real. Those are called visitation dreams. So enjoy those. Really, they're not very common. Right knee keeps blowing out and going on the 5th knee replacement. Good God, what job is this man doing? So if that's the case, he really does not like change and does not or refuses to change his job or retire. So my guess is he doesn't want to retire because he doesn't know what to do. So that's, yeah. Bladder cancer, Danny. Bladder cancer is literally pissed off. Like he's angry and pissed off at not only himself, but other people. Horrible morning sickness. Julianne, that's hormonal all the way. That has everything to do with your estrogen, your progesterone, and all that. So time to go get that checked. Tumors in liver are shrinking. MRI again in 3 months. Anything else I can do to help out? Natalie, yes. I want you to meditate. Keep meditating because you hold anger in your liver. So when you get really pissed off, I want you to ask yourself, because I do too. So when I get mad, I'm like, time out, time out. First of all, why am I angry at this situation? And it's usually because I can't control the situation or another person on how they're reacting, because they're not reacting the way that I would expect them to react or the way that I want them to react. So I have to remember they're a different person, and maybe I need to look at this from a different perspective. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to look at the other perspective. So, and it's usually just because I can't control the situation. Boils down to control. Good questions, guys. Daughter has PANS, brain inflammation. What can you do to support her healing? Candy, I would tell you, get her the book. If anybody has autoimmune issues, I really like the book Medical Medium by Anthony Williams. It really helps to kind of look at things from maybe a different perspective a little bit. But the biggest thing for that one is, Candy, no sugar. She can't have sugar. And a lot of B and D and the microvitamins. She needs vitamins. It's a nutritional issue. So that's going to be the best one, nutrition. Let's see. Why do you have big gaps in your memories from childhood on, Jason? You'll remember them when your soul is ready. We don't need to open up Pandora's box if your soul is not ready. That could be very traumatic. Our body, our brain especially, will protect us and memories when it needs to be protected. So this is one of those that I would say you'll start remembering, especially when you go into your shadow period or your dark night period. Once you start beginning to go through that, that's probably when those memories are going to start surfacing. So you will remember. Give it time. Don't force it, though. I've seen a lot of people try to force it, and it didn't. It's just very, very difficult on a soul and the mind body soul complex. It's very difficult. So. Let's see. Boy, some of these are going kind of quick. Hang on. Weird question. Does this fall under metaphysical? Went gray-headed really early, or you're just super wise beyond your years? Both. But no, actually, that is a copper deficiency. And that worries me a little bit. And not to, I'm not a fear-based person. I don't like to do that. But if that's the case and it's not necessarily genetic, then it's a copper deficiency. But very common for aneurysms to happen if that's the case. So watch your eyes, and you'll notice that one of my eyes is different than my other eye. That's why I had to get done with readings, because I knew that my brains were changing and they were no longer even. So if your eyes start doing that, then we know that we very well could watch for an aneurysm. So, but that is a copper deficiency. So varicose veins and gray hair early on are a sign of a copper deficiency. And so the best thing you can do is drink out of a copper cup. So let's see. Sorry, some of these are. I remember from 3 on, I had PTSD because I really had a bad life with a lot. Yeah. So that's why I'm like going, no need to open up Pandora's box right out the gate. Let's see. This I think is another Hashimoto's. Yep. Hashimoto's is because you don't speak your truth. You don't say no. You don't put up boundaries. You just let people walk all over you. And you don't ever say no. And then you get really pissed off and angry about it. And you don't speak your truth because it would cause some drama or it would cause a possible fight. I'm like, no, always speak your truth, especially if somebody's degrading you, belittling you, berating you. You don't have to put up with that shit. Nobody does. So, and if that's the case, walk away. I'm like, you deserve better than that. And you know it too. So you just stick around for hope thinking that the other person's going to change. They're not. They won't change. So that's why I don't have hope. I don't have hope or expectation on anything. It is what it is. Depression, early onset, like 9 years old. If that is the case, that has a lot to do, Amanda, with an abandonment issue by a parent. So that's always a parental abandonment issue. So that's where it's at. Why would somebody have a panic attack after a Reiki session? Melanie, that's a good thing. That's actually a good sign. It's not necessarily a panic attack. It's because all the emotions came out at once and the brain doesn't know how to control that. And so what happens is it feels like a panic attack because all of these emotions, these negative emotions are coming out all at once. And that's very difficult for your brain to compute. So it's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. But at the time, it's not a good thing. I get it. So that means to tell me over the next 3 days, they're still going to be a little off and like cryy. And I'm like, but again, that's a good thing. It really is. So let's see here. If you're seeing a lot of 5, Stacy, that's like, that's a lot of change. Mini strokes is worry. You're internally worried all the time. Worried about this, worried about that, worried about this, worried about that. And they'll always say, I'm worried or I'm stressed a lot. Let's see here. Odd noises in ears with the movement of the head. Jenny, that has a lot to do, like double check that, but sometimes it has to do with, like, cause sometimes it has to do with like your tubes getting clogged up, especially like the veins right here. So that very well could have something to do with like cholesterol getting clogged up in a tube or something. But that's lack of joy, lack of happiness. Lacey's asking 8-year-old, hang on one second, some of these are going fast. 8-year-old always has bowel problems. He doesn't have major accidents, but a few been going on since he was a baby. Like I said, if they haven't had any sexual molestation early on in the game, oftentimes that's just until their bowels until they grow up and their bowels start working properly. That's kind of par for the course. Oftentimes, usually when they start to go through puberty, like about junior high, that oftentimes goes away. Can you explain why ADHD is so prevalent in people who have heightened psychic abilities? I think it's just because our brains work differently. Like it's very difficult for me to do one thing. And when I'm truly tapped in, I can hear everybody's conversation all at once. So I can hear people talk about their birthday and talking about, a funeral and talking about this and talking about that and talking about this. So I could hear all these conversations, but yet I could still hear the conversation that I'm in. I think it's just because we're neurodivergent and we also notice patterns really well as well. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. It's just because we're just a little bit more neurodivergent. Our brains aren't normal, but we're not supposed to be. So if a psychic says you have a negative energy attachment, is that real or a scam? I am so sick and tired of these so-called psychics sit there and say, oh, you have a negative entity attachment, and I'm the only one that can remove it. So if you give me some additional money, I will remove it for you at no problem. That's why you have all this bad luck. I'm like, that's a fucking scam if I have never heard one. Do not fall for it. If you have a negative entity attachment, you would not be able to stand my voice. I would annoy the shit out of you. So I'm like, no, you don't. So I'm like, that is absolutely a scam. So So concerned about a curse from an entity, my 7-year-old son, what can we do to cleanse and protect? I would tell you that he's not cursed. And again, some bullshit psychic said, oh, your son's cursed. And if you give me more money, I will help you to get through that curse. Because here's the deal. If they're really, truly here for humanity, they're not going to sit there and say, oh, you have a negative entity attachment. Good luck. Bye-bye. Give me some more money so I can help. No, they're going to be like, you know what? Screw the money. Here's the person that you need to go to help you figure this out so we can get this fixed. That's an ethical, moral psychic. So that is bullshit, absolute bullshit. So I will tell you that your son does not have a negative entity attachment, nor is he cursed or any other bullshit. So no, he's fine. But don't tell him that, because then he's going to get a victim mentality for the rest of his life. So, and I'll tell you what, if he's acting like an asshole, it's usually because the parents aren't either putting in discipline, or they're not understanding that he is pissed off and angry because of an abandonment issue by the parent that's gone missing. So that's usually why. It's a rare bird, a very rare bird, that a 7-year-old or a child is going to have a negative entity attachment, let alone be possessed. I am like, that is such a rare bird. And if that child is going to have that, then I'm telling you that you're living in a house that you shouldn't be living in. But that's so rare. It just hardly ever happens. So I do not believe in curses. I'm sorry, I don't. So I'm like, because what you put out to the universe, if you're going to curse somebody, you're going to get that back 7-fold. So first of all, good luck. But second of all, I just don't believe in that. I'm sorry, I don't. Because if you believe you're cursed, then guess what? You are. It's the belief in it in itself that you are giving away your power to some bullshit. So no, you are always in control of you. No one can affect your free will without your consent. By you saying I'm cursed, you just gave away that free will. You just gave away that consent. So no, absolutely not. Let's see. How to help with an OCD, anxiety, ritualistic behaviors in child. Candy, if that's the case, again, sounds to me like there's a parent abandonment issue there. And the perfectionism that this kid feels that he needs to have or she needs to have has everything to do with the abandonment issue by the opposite sex parent. So if you fix the abandonment issue, you fix the OCD. But at the same time, it's really a good idea to get a counselor in there so they can learn better coping mechanisms. So they know how to be able to deal with that OCD trigger when it happens. And sometimes it's trauma too. Let's see here. What could be causing problems between T12 and L1, Corey? That would be literally you feeling like people are on your back, or like you're like the whipping boy, like get going, horsey, get going, horsey. So you're literally like a pack mule, and you're doing everything for everybody, but you're not doing anything for yourself. Is craving sunshine part of your awakening? Yep, and outside too. Absolutely, and outside too. This is a great question right here. So how do you nicely respond to coworkers who try to take advantage? Just tell them, you know what, I'm sorry I can't help you right now because I have A, B, C, D to do. So sorry about that. Leave it at that. You don't have to give any more excuses. That's it. Just say, sorry, I can't help you because I have to do A, B, C, and D. And this is required for me to get this done. So yeah. So that's it. Don't over-explain yourself. So my empaths love to over-explain themselves. I'm like, you don't have to, because you don't owe an explanation to these people. They're your coworkers. You don't owe an explanation to them. You don't. How often should one do the 3 to 5 day fast? Oh, once, twice a year. So it depends on how bad your autoimmune stuff is. Peptic ulcer started at age 11. Becky, that is, you quite literally are walking on eggshells all the time. And you're always looking over your shoulder. But a lot of it is, it's trauma. That's a lot of trauma. So having to walk on eggshells for so long. This is a good question too. Wonderful soul healing visit with relatives. Haven't seen in 15 years. So happy, but physically exhausted for 2 weeks. Normal. Yes. Yep. Especially if they're unenlightened and you're enlightened, because you're on two different playing fields, and those two energies don't match up, and they will drain you as quickly as possible. So yeah, absolutely. Next time when you do that, get some obsidian in your pocket so you're not so tired. So black obsidian will help with the energy dump, especially with empaths. So this is a good question right here. Even not really metaphysical, but we'll answer it. How come I can only see certain people's auras and sometimes not? Because sometimes you are clairvoyant and other times your clairvoyant is out the window because you're being too logical. So when you're not thinking of anything, when you're just kind of like duh, when you're done out, that's when you're probably going to be able to see auras. So when you're thinking about things, as far as like, gosh, I got to get this done, I got to get that done, oh, I got to remember to do that, you're not going to see auras. So when you're doing the mundane chores like driving or dishes or laundry and things like that, you'll be able to see that. When you're doing mundane chores, you're meditating. You're not thinking about it. It's just kind of like habit. So you just got to do it. So oftentimes that's where you're going to have some really good aha moments too, because your intuition is on, even though you're not understanding that it's on. So 16-year-old is being misled by his girlfriend's mom, gone to live with her and mom. He refuses to talk to me, refuses to talk to anything spiritual. What can I do? You know what? First of all, he is a minor and you hold all the cards. I will tell you that I don't care under what circumstance. My son would never, ever live in somebody else's house and just fucking leave and go. I'm like, I'm calling the cops. He's coming back home because I'm his mother. Okay. So one, that would never happen in my world. But two, since this has been allowed, let him be. First of all, the odds of them working out, slim to none. All right. So he has to experience this for himself. So allow it. Let him experience it. Let him crash and burn. Do not protect him from the train that's coming down. I'm like, let him get hit by the train, because then he'll come back to you and say, you know what? Sorry about that, mom. Like, now can you hear me? So, and he's like, yep, like, thought so. So let's have a conversation. So like I said, there's nothing you can do other than, if you are going to talk to him, we're going to keep it basic. We're going to keep, hey, how are you? Are you being fed? You're being clothed? How's your, work? How's everything going? Are you doing school? So as long as you keep things simple and easy, you'll keep that line of communication open. But remember, if you try to constructive criticism or you try to give him advice and he's not going to hear it, your conversation's done. This is a good question too. What causes pancreatic cancer? It's because your partner is very, very critical, and it's criticism. You're resentful at your partner for marrying that partner, but you don't see a way out. And that partner is very critical, usually fairly controlling as well. So Crystal, Abby, you were asking about chronic fatigue advice. Chronic fatigue is always based in the root chakra that has everything to do with your adrenal glands. And that is because you are constantly in fight or flight mode. So you're always scared to death and you're living in fear 24/7. So I want you to learn how to meditate so you can balance out your fear and your anxiety. So that is telling me that you never get breaks. You never take a vacation. You're constantly working and you're always worried about the what if. And you can't control the what if. You're not in control of it. You don't know it. So let it go. You've got to learn how to surrender and meditate. Those are the two things I'm going to tell you to do. But your adrenal glands are shot due to worry. But we're supposed to have that because it's fight or flight. If a bear is chasing us, our adrenal glands are going to kick into gear. But if you're constantly in fear, your adrenals are going to go so much that they're just eventually not going to work correctly. So, and then you're going to be exhausted. So double check the adrenals, double check the thyroid as well. Acne that never fully goes away. Allie, that's anger. Bits of anger. Hip pain, Pauline, indecision. You have a hard time making decisions and just sticking with that decision. So you're very, very indecisive. So is there a reason for my hubby and his 2 siblings being born on the 13th of the month? No, they're soul families. So that's very common in soul families. Abandonment issues gave me no problems except skin problems. That is normal, streetcar, especially if you're a guy and you have an abandonment issue by your mother, by the opposite sex parent. Yes, that would be, because the opposite sex parent is to teach you self-confidence and self-worth. And if that's the case, you don't feel comfortable in your own skin. So yes, that absolutely makes sense. Left foot pain, it's because you're having a really hard time moving forward with your spirituality or your intuition or your creativity. So that's usually where that one's held. You're being way too logical. What can stress do to your body physically? Oh, I just talked about that. Adrenal fatigue. A lot of times it high cholesterol. A lot of things with the brain, especially like strokes, aneurysm, things like that. So heart glitches once in a while too, but 9 times out of 10, stress affects the body a lot. But it's so funny because when I ask people, okay, so what are you stressed about? Well, everything. I'm like, but what in particular? I mean, what right now, today, because you just told me that you're very stressed out. So what today is stressing you out? And they're like, well, just everything. I'm like, no, I don't. Give me one example, please. And they can't, because they're so used to being stressed out that is normal for them. And for them to sit there and be bored and do nothing is abnormal. And I'm like, no, you need more of that because you don't know how to sit still and chill. So, but like I said, stress, everybody's always stressed out. I'm like, but over what? Well, money. I'm like, well, okay, but you got enough money to pay for your bills. You got a roof over your head. Your kids are taken care of. You're fairly healthy. So again, what are you stressed out about? So, and like I said, when you look at the big picture of things, you're not stressed. I think that our society is so built on being stressed and busy. We're always stressed and busy. I'm like, so take time out. That's what you have vacation days for. So take them. So what causes high blood pressure? Stress. Yeah, you're always stressed, always busy, always stressed. Same with adrenal fatigue. Same. It's high stress, fight or flight. So thoughts on buying gold and silver? I got some. I'm diversified. Absolutely. Hey, shush. Let's see. Eczema on, hang on one sec. My dogs are going to bark. Hang on. Hi, Ham. You go work out? Eczema on face that won't go away. Rebecca, that has a lot to do with your job and the fact that you feel like you have to do your job. And if you don't do that particular job, that it won't get done and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket and you don't even own the job. So that's what that one is. Migraines, Madison, great question. Migraines is perfectionism, a perfectionism issue. So relinquish control. Ovulation pain. That's a really good one. So that has I know this sounds weird. It's going to be one of two things: issues with your dad and the fact that dad's a good dad, but dad was never there to give you a hug or a kiss or say that he loves you because he was a workaholic or he was never home. And usually if you're having ovulation pain, your husband, the guy that you married or the guy that you're with, is just like your dad. So workaholic, never home, maybe he's a truck driver, farmer, something along those lines. So they love you, but they're not huggy, kissy people. So, well, they know I love them. I'm like, well, have you ever given them a hug? Well, why would I do that? I'm like, never mind. Tumor left brachial. Oh, this is a good one. Hang on a second. One went fast. Tumor in left brachial plexus. So that would be grief with the mother or daughter, but usually that is severe grief or the fact that you had to caregive for your mother and you didn't want to. So, but that has everything to do with a mom or a female, and that has to do with the heart chakra. So that's love. But usually I see that with caregivers of their mom, and their mom is a narcissistic bee or not a good person, but they feel the need to take care of that mother. I'm like, I don't know why I wouldn't. So, ADHD and 9-year-old daughter who is definitely intuitive, but not sure how to help. Jessica, number one, get them outside as much as possible. I don't know why, but outside will balance us out like this instantly. So number two, no sugar in the morning. Number three, give us the 10-minute rule for everything. 10 minutes to bedtime, 5 minutes to bedtime, time for bed. We'll go to bed without an argument. And then lastly, you don't need to worry about her. She is here to teach you about intuition. You need to teach her about reality. That's the chore. As long as she's got one person to go to, it's all good. As long as she's got one person to go to talk about what she may experience, see, or feel. But usually, if I went to my dad, I was scared shitless of something. But he was also deaf, so half the things that I told him, he's like, "That's nice." He didn't hear me. So, that was a pretty rare bird if something like that happened. But in stage 4, going with my counselor for helping the trauma. Is there anything else that can make this go faster or easier? Great question. And first of all, props to doing the shadow work. That shit's no joke. Okay. So I love the fact that I work at the crystal store, and it's so funny at Awakenings. I have these girls that are coming, they're like, okay, so I'm like going through my shadow period right now. And so I just need a few crystals. I'm like, you're not going through your shadow period, honey. You're at stage 3. You're just making some moves on your chessboard. And so, and then I got other ladies that'll come in and their makeup is all run. And they're like, I'm at the stage 2 and I'm doing shadow work and I need some help. I'm like, come on, let's go, honey. You damn skippy. Let's go. So, but yeah, that shadow work, that's no joke. It will take you as long as it's needed. And that's the best thing I can tell you. Took me 4 years because I'm kind of a slow learner and I'm very stubborn. So it took me 4 years. Some people skate by in a year. Like my friend Stace, I think she was in her shadow period for like 8 months. And I'm like, oh, so other people are in there longer. And it really, especially if you have trauma, that's going to take a little bit longer. So like I said, break down. I mean, those skeletons are going to pop out. When they do, acknowledge them, figure out what you're learning, put the skeleton back. It's going to come out again to smack you. And you're like, I just dealt with you, but there's something else that you're learning that you didn't see before. But I'm proud of you. Just keep going. Just keep going. Daff, that's a good question. So which side of the body is masculine and feminine? Masculine, right hand, that's your right side, and the left side of the brain. So remember, in science, it always goes this way, right? So, and for the feminine, it's the left side of the body and the right side of the brain. So females are very lunar. So we're 28-day cycles, just like the moon. Men are very solar with the sun. Every 24 hours, they have a cycle. So yes, they have cycles too. So they just have them every 24 hours. We have them every 28 days. So, but yeah. Some good questions. Let's see here. Husband has diabetes. So usually diabetics is to do with that they put somebody up on a pedestal that they thought they were going to marry when they were 16, 17, 18, and that rug got pulled out from underneath them. So oftentimes that's where that one lies. Or it's because you have the two couples that they can't stand each other, but one's blind and one's deaf, and they need each other at this point, but they'll never get a divorce, but they don't like each other. So sometimes it's that. But, or lastly, it's they get to a point where they're like, I have nothing left to give. I'm out. I've got nothing left to give you. I'm dry. So they lost the sweetness for life. Lung cancer with Mets to the bone. Sharon, that is resentment mega. And you are resenting somebody who hurt you in your heart, in your core. So forgiveness is the best way to get past it. You've got to learn how to forgive that person for the dirty shit they did to you. And that ain't easy. So, and I will tell you, look at how they were raised. That will help you to understand why they do what they do. Anger and rage. So Ellie is asking anger and rage in kids. It's always an abandonment issue by a parent. It's always, if a little boy is angry, I am like, where's their dad? Well, he's in jail. Wouldn't you be pissed off and angry if your dad was never around? I think adults forget to put themselves in children's shoes, because here's the deal. Children are born innocent. Parents fuck them up. Parents screw them up. Children are always born innocent. They are. And that's why if a kid is messed up, I'm looking at both parents. So, because it's never the kid's fault. It's the parent's fault. Ovulating on new moon, bleeding on a new moon. Actually, you want to do that, Ellie. That's perfect, because you want to ovulate on the full moon and you want to menstruate on the new moon. New moon, new beginnings, fresh new start. So yes, you actually want to. I'm the opposite. I'm backwards. Of course I would be. So, but no, actually you want to menstruate on a new moon and you want to ovulate on the full moon. Keratosis pilaris, 11-year-old girl. Ooh, that's usually an autoimmune issue, viral issue. So when that kiddo was little, they had a lot of viral stuff, RSV, whooping cough, all this other stuff. That also has to do with a little bit of like they struggle with self-confidence. They struggle with feeling comfortable in their own skin. And this is where dad needs to step into this little girl's life and be a hero. So when dad's going to go get groceries, daughter has to go. So if dad's going to go out for a cruise around the park, daughter has to go. So those two need to be linked up. Hang on. Some of these are going fast. Hang on, I just grabbed one. Low blood pressure and anemia. That I'm just curious to know, Audrey, I'm curious to know, are you struggling with what you want to do with your life as far as a purpose is concerned? I'm just curious to know that. So let me know in the chat if that's true. Good stone for opening the third eye. It's already open. If you're seeing 1111, you don't have to worry about opening your third eye. It's already open, or you wouldn't see 1111 in the first place. What clair is smell and taste? That's clair gustuscent or clair aliens. Chronic ear infections. This is a great one. So chronic ear infections is because there's so much noise in the household, whether that's the TV is too loud, parents are yelling, toddlers are yelling. That has everything to do with when you get an ear infection, you are quite literally like wanting to go deaf because it's too loud. So usually there's too much noise. Let's see. So yes, Adri, yeah. So that is probably the number one reason why you have low iron and anemia and everything else. It's because you really don't know what to do. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Number one, I want you to follow your curiosity. What is the job that you've always been curious about? And number two, what would be a job that you feel like, even as a kid, that you could do every single day that would be fun? What would be the fun job? That's how I want you to look at things. What would be fun? And when I say that, people go, oh, it's this, but. And I'm like, screw your butt. I'm like, I'm going to call you out now. So usually it's because they know what they want to do, but they're scared to death to make that change due to financial reasons, due to what other people may say, due to health insurance. So all these different reasons. So that's where I'm going to tell you, Audrey, I'm like, you know what? Let's go back to the basics. And let's ask ourselves, what would be a really fun job? Screw your education, screw the money, screw the insurance. Flatline this out. What would be a really fun, interesting job? And I would write down 3 and then just write it down. So that'll help you to determine that. What helps for skin fungus and what are the cause? So skin, anything is skin, and is lack of self-confidence, lack of self-worth, not feeling comfortable in your own skin. Skin fungus just means to tell me that you're very, very stressed out and you have way too much sugar in the body, way too much sugar. How do you stop worrying about finances? I will tell you what, Ellie, more than likely your parents put that in your head. I love my mom to death, but she put that in my head. When I realized that my mother was my trigger, because my mom would say, well, can you afford that? Like, I would always be like, well, I can't afford that. I can't get this. I can't get that. So I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Instead of me saying, I can't afford that, I'm saying, I just can't get that for now, for right now, just for right now. That's a higher vibration than I can't afford it. So more than likely, your parents drilled that into your head and you have to get that out of your head. And so when I realized that, I told my mom, I love you to death, but I will no longer talk to you about my finances because you trigger me. And the minute I stopped listening to her, money started coming in. Money started coming in. So, and you have to remember, our parents were raised in a different generation. You know, they're the boomer era. So they lived through the damn depression. They get it. So they're going to see money and finances and things like that completely differently than somebody younger. So you got to forgive them for that. But at the same time, you got to know where it's coming from. And more than likely, somebody taught that to you when you were a child. Can there actually be a spiritual cause for Tourette's? Yep. It's usually due to trauma. Something traumatic happened that triggered this to start. So usually Tourette's has everything to do with triggers due to a traumatic situation. La, la, la. These are good questions, guys. So vitamin D deficiency, everybody's vitamin D deficient for the most part. Everybody is. But it usually is because you don't really care to be outside. So maybe you had a heat stroke at one point in time or something along the lines, but it's usually because you don't really like being outside. Somebody who always likes to sit on their foot. I do. Like I'm sitting on my foot right now. So people who like to sit on their feet and their hands are usually more neurodivergent. Reason why children come in with autism, Kathy, usually and this is just my opinion. First of all, I want to make it very clear, I am not anti-vax. I'm not. I do think that we should have vaccines in children, but here's the kicker with this one. When you can't overload the brain or the body with a bunch of aluminum and stuff. So, because when we were younger, we only had like 16 shots. That has now doubled, if not tripled, with kids nowadays. And they're still giving it to them in the same sequence as what we had. That is an overload on the system every single time. And the body and the brain will shut down to protect itself. And that's what I think autism comes from. It's from all the vaccines, not just one, all of them overloading the system all at once. So when my son was little, I came in 8 different times to get his series of shots. And it really pissed the staff off because they're like, this is ridiculous. You're just making more appointments for everything. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I am not going to give him that many shots in a very short amount of time when his body cannot recuperate from all of that. I'm not willing to do that. And if you don't like it, that's fine. I will find somebody else who will. So, for me, I think it's an overload of usually heavy metal, especially aluminum, within the system. And what the brain does is it wants to preserve itself. And so that's what I think autism comes from. So, and they have been seeing excellent results with heavy metal detoxes when it comes to autism, especially with products like that contain zeolite and things like that. But do your own research. I am not a doctor. I cannot tell you that. But from what I've been seeing, that's kind of been the gist of it. Let's see. Hang on, some of these are lower body joint pain, both sides. That is indecision, and it's indecision with a little bit of stubbornness. So that's where it's really hard for you to decide. And that stubbornness, meaning that you just don't like change. And so when you if you think about a tree, if you firmly plant your feet in the ground, you're like, nope, I don't like change. Trees are flexible even in the wintertime. People are supposed to be flexible with change too. And if you put your feet in the ground and you're like a stubborn little donkey and you don't want to go anywhere, that will absolutely wreak havoc on your hips, your knees, and your feet every single time. So you have to learn to be a-okay with change, because you grow best at a soul level with change. If you wanted everything perfect and happy and blissful, well, then go to heaven. So because that's where it exists. You chose to come here in this time space reality for some freaking reason or another. And it's not for life to be perfect and happy and wonderful all the time. That's bullshit. So you're here to experience the gamut of emotions that a human can experience, because you don't experience those in heaven. That's why it's fun to come to the school of hard knocks, because you learn best at a soul level when you come to a place like this, where it's very negative with a lot of different diversity and change. So you have to get used to that. So, and once you're a-okay with relinquishing control and just surrendering and understanding that you only have control of what you think, what you say, what you do, and how you respond. That's it. You barely have control over your kids. So, but that's it. So once you really, truly understand that, and that understanding that if you have a negative emotion, it's because something's unhealed within you, then we can begin to move forward. So like I said, that's my perspective on it. Let's see, excessive sweating. Usually that is a lot of times crystal anxiety, due to anxiety. Absolutely. Schizophrenia and psychosis. I love this question. So I will tell you that a schizophrenic and I are no different. None. I see dead people that are not there. I hear voices in my head of people that are not there. I'm a medium, but I'm also enlightened. They are the same in a way, but they're unenlightened. So the voices that they hear are not positive. The things that they see sometimes are scary. So understand, I am floating in the same waters that the schizophrenic is drowning in. We are no different. So that's what I mean by that. I follow a guy who is a schizophrenic on TikTok, and I think what he does is brilliant. He literally will shoot a live video and say, okay, guys, is there really like a dog here, or is this just a psychosis or hallucination? And they're like, nope, there really is a dog there. Or other times like, nope, there's nothing there. And he's like, okay, thank you for letting me know. So once he knows that it's not real, he lets it go. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's a brilliant way to deal with your schizophrenia, even if you're on medication. So, because you still, that does bleed through still. So, postpartum depression and anxiety, that's weirdly par for the course. So the best thing I can tell you is ask for help. And that is very, very hard, but ask for help. Ask if somebody's like, hey, I would love to come help, say yes. You don't have to do it yourself. I will tell you, as an independent person myself, it was hard for me to ask for help, but I needed to, because I needed to take care of mom so I could take care of my babies. So I had to learn how to balance that out and not just give. I had to take care of myself and kind of get in the middle there. So, but don't be afraid to ask, because moms are always like, I'll come help. And you're like, no, I'm fine. No, mom can come help. Even if it's just the dishes, it's something, right? So, let's see here. Speech problems in children, par for the course, especially if they're neurodivergent like me, ADD, ADHD, autistic, or number two, highly intuitive. Because here's the deal. I didn't talk until a little bit later either. And the number one reason why is because why should I talk to you if I could talk to you telepathic? And so this is why often kids that have speech problems, when I will ask the mom, does he put his forehead to your forehead a lot and do that? And they're like, yeah. And then he headbutts me and I hate it. I'm like, what he's trying to do is communicate to you third eye to third eye. He is trying to talk to you telepathically and you aren't listening. And when you're not listening, he headbutts you because he gets pissed. And I'm like, so listen, and you learn his language. So he doesn't have to learn ours. He'll get there. They always do, but don't press it that much. It's okay. You don't have to really press it. So it's okay. They'll catch up. They always do. So like I said, I had issues too. I didn't talk. So auditory processing disorder, very much, Shelley, again, that's a neurodivergent kid, ADD, ADHD, autistic, very neurodivergent. Sometimes that is a heavy metal toxicity, could be that. But usually sometimes they'll learn how to adapt and kind of, sometimes they'll grow out of it too. So let's see, left side shoulder blade. Melanie, that has everything to do with taking on the burden of your children. So you're taking on your children's problems and you don't have to. No. So if your kids are over the age of 20, you don't have to take their problems on. They created them themselves. And it's not a reflection of your parenting. It's not. So it's just kids are dipshits and they're not going to figure it out until the frontal lobe gets done developing, which is about 21 and 22. So that's why we have 2 19-year-old girls and an 18-year-old boy. Yes, my house reeks of puberty, teenage angst, fun. But the girls are moved out. They're actually doing really well. So, severe leg cramps, middle of the night. That is a nutritional issue, my dear. So make sure I'd be taking a vitamin of some sort. Absolutely, yes. Sorry, lower. Sorry, these are going. I can't read. Let's see here. Lower left side back pain, left side neck pain. Amanda, I would be willing to bet money you and your mother are button fucking heads right now. So, and I bet you're button heads over your spirituality if I could even go a little step further on that too. Just realized I'm dyslexic in the last few years. Corey, welcome to the club. I am too. That's why you will rarely see me at the registers at Awakenings. I screw up my 6s and my 9s and like, yeah, all the time. I'm not good with numbers. That's why my husband is the financial guy. Gina just found out that she has autoimmune, not good prognosis. What can be done? Nutrition. The other thing is, like I said, read the Medical Medium book. I really like that for autoimmune problems. But we were talking about this one earlier, especially with fasting. Fasting is a really great way for people that have autoimmune issues. So, and Ellie, we discussed alcoholism and addictions, but people that have addictions, it's a coping mechanism on how to deal with the pain of the traumatic experience that they went through. That's almost always where it's at. So, all right, guys, my throat's starting to get scratchy and I didn't get any water. So I'm gonna let you guys go off on here. Tomorrow on Awakenings, at the Awakenings Facebook page, my husband is gonna have his exotic live sale. If any of you are interested in signing up for Enlightenment Academy, my next class is gonna be in July. I think maybe I have a few spots left. So if you're interested in that, by all means, look into it. Just head to psychickelly.com. You can read all about it. And then I don't think I have anything like, I don't know what kind of, I gotta look at my damn calendar. Hang on, let me see, because I never know what the hell's going on. I got a Q&A on YouTube next Tuesday, and then next Thursday a Q&A on TikTok. So like I said, in the meantime, gather up them questions and I'll be able to answer those up here over the next week or so. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Hopefully this helps everybody to kind of understand some of the medical reasons of why they struggle a little bit and the emotional issues of what's going on. So I want to thank everybody for watching. Have an awesome weekend. Like I said, Jupiter made a really weird turn. So just hang in there for the next 2 weeks. If you're not noticing any drama or sadness or emotions coming out over the last 2 days, then as far as your astrology chart, you should be a-okay. But some of us might struggle a little bit this weekend. But again, I'm thinking this tomorrow, there might be some sort of financial switcheroo. I don't know. I can't stick my finger on it. So we'll see. So, all right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful week ahead and make sure that you take your breaks. All right. Take care.